If that's not the theme of so many childhoods, I don't know what is. Hello everyone and welcome to Let's Play Mighty Morphin Power Rangers for the Super Nintendo. So let's not fool around and just get right on into it. So Rita's trying to conquer the world, big surprise there. And now we get to select our character. You can select any of the 5 original Mighty Morphin here, from Trini all the way to Jason. I am going to be using each ranger once because there's actually exactly 5 stages. So, well, technically. And I'm going to be starting off with probably my second favorite out of the entire cast, Zach Taylor. And Power Rangers, in terms of gameplay, is a pretty standard beat 'em up. You go all the way to the right on the screen, punching any putties that happen to be in your way. Putties come in all sorts of variations, mostly just different colors that increase HP or different attack patterns. Pretty simple. You have a pretty standard punch combo. That's pretty much it. You can also hold up to do a special attack, or up an attack to do a slightly stronger combo finisher, essentially, almost from the start. Duck kicks, all that kind of such. And you can also throw enemies in a couple different ways, depending on what button you hold when you get to them. It's very simple. Halfway through the stages is where the actual main idea of the game kicks in, but for right now, it's just to get you used to everything. And I'm actually going to be going over some little, not developmental trivia, but trivia on the actors. First off, Zach Taylor was played by Walter Jones, a name which I have to admit is awesome. And well, first off, interesting little fact, he is actually missing a finger on his left hand, I believe it is. But outside of Power Rangers, he actually didn't do too much. He was on an episode of Family Matters, Sabrina Teenage Witch, Buffy, Power Rangers Lost Galaxy, he did a voice. Aside from this, the role I know him the most for is actually from the Forever Red episode of Power Rangers Wild Force, where he was the green guy, Garrock, I think his name was. And in terms of my history of Power Rangers, I actually started with the original series on VHS. It was one VHS that had like the first episode or 2, and then that one that started with a weird basketball game that I can't exactly recall the villain of. I think it was like a Yeti or something. And after that, I just kind of went on my own into the series, watching whatever series I could find at the time that was on. Halfway through each stage, your characters do in fact morph into their ranger forms. And at that point, they get a bit different, but most of them are at the core the same. Their combos are a bit longer, and they also have a bit more strength behind them. You can do an up attack that's a lot more powerful. And you also, you might see at the bottom right there, have a bomb attack, where by pressing the X button, you essentially do, not a screen nuke, but an attack that does multiple hits on the screen. The most broken way you can probably get through the game, honestly, is the Rangers, is just by spamming the up and attack button, because it's basically their combo finisher anytime you want. Obviously, you do sacrifice possible stun locks, but it's a pretty viable strategy, honestly. I'm pretty sure I'd beat this game just by doing that attack. Anyway, in terms of overall Power Rangers, I've actually seen every single series. Not as they aired, obviously, because I was born, I think what was the series going on when I was probably getting into the series? It was probably Time Force, actually. But I have seen every series because sometime in, I think, junior year, I decided to marathon every single Power Ranger series because they were on Netflix. And I got all the way through Megaforce. And I have seen every episode of Super Megaforce in the first season of Dino Charge. Super Dino Charge is not on Netflix as we speak. And I'll be honest, it's a guilty pleasure. It's stupid, stupid action. It really is. And honestly, I can get behind it. Though, there are some series I will say I just cannot stand. RPM and Ninja Storm come to mind. But that's my own preference. I find those series boring. I know some people don't. I'm not exactly sure how damage values work in this game. I want to say combos actually do progressive damage, like you'll do 1, then 2, then 3. But I'm not entirely sure about that, but it definitely seems like it the way you take out especially the purple putties. Also, that's actually one thing I kind of wish this game had. In Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, and I think possibly it's a Super Sentai equivalent, whenever the putties get hit, there's this very metallic tonk sound effect. I'll see if I can find it and put it in right here. And I just love that sound effect so much. I don't know what it is about it. In terms of my favorite Power Ranger series, that's actually a pretty interesting idea, because the thing is, I have favorites that I loved as a kid, but I don't like much anymore. Like, I used to love Power Rangers in Space, and while I think it's still very watchable, I have a lot more issues with it than I used to. Same with, say, Wild Force or Lost Galaxy, though that's probably out of those three the one I still watch the most. Nowadays, my favorite's actually from the Disney era, because honestly, Disney, while they started off kind of meh with Ninja Storm, got really good with Dino Thunder, then SPD and Mystic Force. Mystic Force in particular is my favorite nowadays, followed by Dino Thunder. RPM, though, I really just cannot stand. Either way, first boss of the game, really, is Bones, who was the first monster of the week in Power Rangers history. Start every boss fight you can off with the bomb, because then you can just get some good cheap damage in. After that, try to dodge their attacks as best you can. Bones here likes to do a stab that I just cannot dodge for some reason, or a low slash attack. Basically, you either have to duck under attack or jump over it. The thing I actually like about the bosses in this game is, first off, the boss fight theme is incredible. In fact, this game's overall soundtrack is glorious and so heroic sounding. Most of the bosses have a high attack, a low attack, and then something you can just do otherwise. There's no real strategy for them other than just learn their attacks, learn how to dodge them, and do as much damage as you can in the meanwhile. I always actually remember Bones in particular, not only because he's the first, but because for some reason he's very similar to Beetlejuice, even though from what I recall that's actually accidental. Either way, after doing enough damage, as you can plainly see, you enter a second phase where he just kind of jumps all over the place and occasionally fires a fireball that explodes. Not very threatening. In fact, that's Bones in a nutshell. He does that, I want to say, once more, and then we enter the final phase of the fight, which is just his head. No, he does it 3 times. Huh. There we go. Now it's just his head. Now you just have to hit his head enough, and then he's done. Now, one thing I will say, I am actually not playing on a hard mode, because this game does have a difficulty. Select, sort of. I think you need to enter, like, a code to do it. But I'm not playing on hard mode, mostly just because what you get for it isn't worth it. I'll just tell you what it is when we get to it. And for beating the stage, you get a password. All the passwords are always the same, so if you do another playthrough, this password will still be 3847, and I love how short the passwords are. It's so good. And in between stages, you can once again select your ranger. Whenever I'm playing the game on my own, I'm usually only playing as Zack or Billy or interchanging between the two, but might as well show them all off. And next up is Trini Kwan, played by, I'm gonna butcher this pronunciation, by the way, hopefully I don't, but if I do, I apologize ahead of time for that. Tui Trong? I don't know how to pronounce it. I think it's a Korean name. And first off, she holds a distinction in the original Mighty Morphin cast because, as most people know, her equivalent in Super Sentai Kyoryu Sentai Zyuranger was a boy, quite literally named Boy. Hence why her outfit doesn't have a skirt while Kimberly's does. But she holds a distinction out of the original 5 to have been the only one to have passed away at this point. About a week before 9/11, she died in a car accident. I actually remember, I think it was one of the last 10 episodes of Time Force, there was an in memoriam to her, and that's just sad. 27 is way too early to die, and I feel bad for that. Either way, mood whiplash aside, one thing you'll notice about the 5 Rangers in this game is that until they morph, they control and basically play the exact same. I don't think there's even any range differences. I think the most difference they have is possibly their fighting style having slightly different abilities. That was poorly phrased. Maybe their kicks reaching slightly higher than others. And I'm not entirely sure about that myself. But yeah, actually, on the topic of Super Sentai, I actually have watched a decent chunk of it. Not as much as my friend Jordan, ironically enough, because I'm the one who got it into him. Because over the summer in between freshman and sophomore years of college, I decided to randomly drag him into watching what was adapted into Mighty Morphin Power Ranger Season 2, Gosei Sentai Dairanger, and we fell in love. It was so silly, but so fun. To the point where he even made a fan fiction about the Red and the Blue Rangers in that series. And we're a bit spurred for time because school and such. We're currently watching Alpha Ranger. However, after Module Ranger, we actually kind of did a split. He started watching a lot more stuff solo, as did I. He watched things like Go Busters, Tokyuger, Kyoryuger, Gingamon and such. Whereas I started splitting off a bit more into Kamen Rider, which I actually like a bit more because since there's much fewer main characters to focus on, they get a bit more development in. Usually, keyword there. Because some series like Agito didn't get as much story development as I would have liked. Monster time, by the way. Next monster is Naughty Gnome. I hate that name. He was actually, I believe, the first monster to appear in US footage, which is kind of a nice distinction. And now you get to see one of the main, first off, weird things about this game. All of the Rangers actually have the same sprite design, just that it's recolored to fit the color. They're all modeled after the Red Ranger, Jason. Anyway, the main difference with Trini is the fact that she has a lot less range than most of the other Rangers, but I think she actually does a slight higher amount of damage to compensate for that. I'm not entirely certain about that. I'm not even sure if there's any like in-depth FAQs about this on GameFAQs or something. Every stage is split into at least 2 sections, but the stages do get longer as we go on. Though get used to seeing these, I guess, light purple putties. They're the most common type in the game from what I recall. Also, fun little fact, this actually isn't the first attempt at this LP. I originally attempted to do this way back when, during the Power Rangers Marathon I was mentioning earlier on in this video, actually. I believe it was when I was in the middle of RPM that I started it, but I just ran out of things to talk about within like the first 10 minutes, and I'm already past that, so I'm doing pretty good right now. I hope. When you're a Power Ranger, I do believe you get more throws you can do, but I'm not entirely certain about that. I know you can definitely do a different down throw, but it all depends on timing, really. Although, speaking of timing, interesting little fact about this game. By the time this game was released, the 6th Ranger, Tommy, was already on the team. In fact, I believe he wasn't even the Green Ranger anymore. I think he was the White Ranger, because this was released at least during Season 2. In fact, by the time this game was released, I think Jason, Zach, and Trini had already made their exits due to payment reasons. Were replaced by Rocky, Aisha, and Zach. Not Zach, Adam. Which is odd, but I guess this game would have started development somewhere during Season 1, so I can understand why. So in terms of me watching Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, the original series, it's a guilty pleasure, but to an extent. I can't watch any of Season 3 because I hate the costumes they gave them in that. And Season 2, while I now love even more due to Die Ranger reasons, it still got a bit stupid. The thing is with Mighty Morphin that's fun to go back to it is the 90s just cheese that it was. And the random pachinko machine monster. I mean, that made sense in Die Ranger, but why adapt that monster of all things? Also, interesting little mechanic. If you take damage and get a healing item, which you can find in either unmorphed or morphed parts of the stage, and you refill your health over max, you actually get more health than appears. Hence why my usually green life bar is now a light shade of blue. I have more health than it actually shows. Which is actually really cool. Not many games did that kind of thing back then. Albeit it's not much more health, but it's more health all the same. Also introduced in this stage is the hanging mechanic. Basically, you can hang on certain platforms. You can also do wall jumps. You don't do those like you do the Metroid ones, though. You can just hold towards the wall. So I guess it's more like Metroid Other End than anything. One thing I don't really like about this game, though, is it doesn't have a multiplayer. I can understand why it wouldn't on the side-scrolling aspect, because having 2 players on a screen like this could actually be kind of hectic, and possibly even almost unplayable, depending on the situation. But, yeah, that's still a missed opportunity on development. There is still a 2-player mode, but I'll get to that when it's more prevalent. Also, I love the soundtrack. I know I mentioned it earlier, but this game's soundtrack is just awesome. Because first off, it's just really good chiptune in general. But it also just all sounds so heroic. I'm not sure which soundtrack I prefer more, this or the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, the movie game. Super Nintendo and Genesis, because I like both of those soundtracks. Because they're just all pretty damn decent. Though I will say, the movie game has the much better rendition of the main theme. Because just getting that you have to get that guitar entirely right, otherwise it just does not sound right. In terms of my other Power Ranger game experience, honestly, there's not much. It's this, both versions of the movie game, and the Ninja Storm game for the Game Boy Advance, which was I did not like. Looking back, that game was not only really hard, but just not very fun. Mind you, I'd say this game is easy. Your first time around, you'll probably lose a good amount of your lives, which are limited, as you can plainly see on the bottom, mid-bottom right. But nowadays, I don't find this game much of a problem just because I've played it so much. That's actually one really annoying thing about the game you saw right there. Enemies can, the only way you can tell when an enemy dies is when they explode. And they do make a distinctive sound when they do so. However, you can hit them off screen, you have to wait for them to come back on, which is a problem with a lot of beat-em-ups, yes, but it's very prevalent here. Either way, time for Naughty Gnome, and he's my least favorite boss in the game. Why? He teleports a lot. Because, meaning, first off, my bomb didn't hit him all the times it could have, and it also means I have to keep track of where he is. I generally like to stand here and just consistently do up slashes, though doing a 1-2-3 combo every now and then is pretty decent too. Because usually the up slash will not only hit him out of the attack he's going to do, but you can hit him from most of the locations that would be on the screen, because he can only teleport 2 places on screen. Not a hard boss, but you do need to be careful of the damage output, especially that rake swipe he just did. That does a decent chunk of damage. I want to say at least a fourth of my health. One slight issue I have against the game, and even then it's only with really Naughty Gnome and the stage 4 boss fight, is that the bosses take a bit too long, especially Naughty Gnome just because he teleports all over the place. Which, mind you, in a beat-em-up you do need some healthy bosses just so the game isn't over in a half hour, but some games can take it a bit too far. Also, in terms of why I took the Ranger order I did, I just wanted to slowly rotate towards Jason, go from the outer layer, middle layer to Jason. Because all things considered, while Tommy eventually became the main character of the Power Rangers franchise until Turbo, and even halfway through Turbo-ish, Jason was the leader for a lot of people's reasons, because he's just the most heroic out of the characters, really. Or at least out of the original 5. Well, generic heroic. I'd argue that Billy was probably the best out of those because he was a bit afraid, but he still went into fight. Ow, that rake does a lot. I want to say that does a lot more on hard mode. Mind you, I'm not exactly certain what hard mode does. The damage they do is an obvious one that they should do. But I want to say that a lot of the enemies also have more health, but I'm not entirely sure about that. And Naughty Gnome is down. And that's also the end of stage 2. A bit of a longer stage, but it's not overly hard. Naughty Gnome can be annoying, but that's about it. But with that, I'm going to end this off here. Thank you guys for watching, and in part 2, we're heading on to stage 3. See you guys then.